ultimately it's not going to have the same soul as human-made stuff does.
Yeah, that lived experience from the designer perspective, that emotional connection to what you design is what brings then the pieces to life. Hello and welcome to a new episode of TEQ. As you can see, I'm not in my office and I have my guest here with me. We are at Coffee Check in Brooklyn, recording with Georgia about sustainability at the intersection of tech and fashion. We are going to be leading up to Fashion Week soon. And although I usually talk about tech, so people might be a bit confused, I do actually think that there is a lot of intersectionality between the way that we think about design and sustainability in tech and fashion. And I couldn't be more delighted to have Georgia Wenig with me today. She is, aside from a personal connection that maybe I'll explain later, she is an emerging menswear designer, aspiring creator, director, and consultant. She recently graduated from a fashion design program at Parsons School of Design and was named the 2025 Sustainable Designer of the Year. That's amazing. Featured in No Kill magazine as the next gen leader in sustainable style. She is reimagining what fashion can be when creativity and ethics share the spotlight. I am delighted to have you. Thank you for finding time and being here. The personal connection is that you are the amazing daughter of an amazing analyst who is a colleague who works at IDC. And we started talking about sustainability and she made the connection and here we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and I am always happy to talk about sustainability whenever I get the chance.
Your most recent collection is called Camp and was produced using sustainable systems rooted in community and longevity and was crafted using only second-hand material, which is amazing, and it proves that it can be done. I'm curious, when you're thinking about fashion and tech, if you're thinking about design, what do you think are the kind of the principles that can maybe overlap tech and fashion?
Well, I think that both can be rethought in circular systems because it's kind of thinking about like production and means of production and using materials that are finite. But I think that both industries can really benefit from that and help reduce waste, because I know that both of them are leading factors to global warming and pollution and things like that.
I agree with a lot of that. And I think that in one of your main thoughts is thinking about sustainability from the get-go, from a design principle. And I think is exactly the same for tech. Both industry have something else in common, in my view, which is the fast problem, right? There's fast tech and there's fast fashion. And that leads to overproduction, waste, as you mentioned. What do you think we can learn from each other? Like, what can tech learn from fashion and fashion learn from tech as far as, overproducing and not encouraging waste? And here I am in New York for a launch of a new phone that is going to encourage everybody to just switch from the phone that they had last year.
Yeah, what I think is interesting about it, I mean, overproduction, there has to be like some demand for it. So it's also about overconsumption and consuming things at a really fast rate. So I think like if we make things that are well made, that are made to last, then there's less of a need to constantly produce and constantly make and constantly upgrade and switch and like just like want for more. So I think that it all kind of starts with like a higher quality object. Well, if it takes more time, so be it. I think that 2025 should be kind of back to basics and like this idea of like man and fire and how we used to literally need nothing to survive. So I think it's interesting that we've deemed like all of these items to be so essential for life when we used to be able to function with literally just rocks and sticks. So
I don't know if I want to quite go back
No, yes, but
that far, but
yeah.
I agree, and I think it's the same for technology. And over the years, we have seen a change in how is actually software that brings new features and a new experience, and it almost bring the the technology that you have, whatever the item is, back to life and feels new. And I would have thought, from a fashion perspective, to your point, maybe is the accessory that brings a piece that you had that was well made, that you had for years, and is a bit of a classic, and revamps that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of beauty in simplicity and yeah, using things as like a base. I think personally I tend to I cycle through the same like 5 pairs of pants and 5 pairs of shirts, but it's just the way that you combine them and the way you
Right.
accessorize them, the way you style them, but it's always the same base. And the base, it was originally like an investment, I suppose, not necessarily meaning that it's super expensive or super nice, but I felt as though it was well made and that I could see myself wearing it in 5 years, 10 years, or even like passing it down. And it's just kind of about how you could use this one piece and adapt it to your life no matter how you change.
Talking about influences, and how do you think technology is influencing fashion, if at all?
Well, I remember one of my first classes in the fashion design program at Parsons. It was called Visual Communication Studio, where we're kind of talking about like visually communicating fashion. So it's this idea of like sketching and mood boards, whatever. But I remember my teacher was talking about this concept of phygital, which is also a pathway within the fashion design program at Parsons. It's this idea of physical and digital. Um, so rendering fashion in a 3D realm on avatars using a program that they taught us called Clo 3D. If you think about like Sims, like
Yeah.
Sims or any kind of video game where you have like a digital avatar, and this digital avatar is a representation of you. So it is you, but in the digital space. And the way that you present yourself in the digital space is however you want. It's like kind of almost a form of self expression. The idea of dressing the avatar as you would yourself and purchasing maybe things by like Prada or Gucci in a digital realm for less money and owning it digitally rather than physically.
Physically, yeah. I mean, having a kid who spent a lot of time on Sims, I totally relate to that. It's not just the visual representation, and so for them, it was about finding, a character that was a character of color, and then finding the outfit that, either they would wear in real life, or maybe they didn't feel comfortable wearing in real life and want to, try and see what it feels like. There are also other technologies like 3D printing or AI generated textile designs. I've seen an amazing machine from HP being able to actually take whatever texture in real life and recreate that digitally. You also have technology that allow you, like blockchain, to have more supply chain transparency. Is there anything that kind of feels more promising to you as far as really helping you push your idea of a sustainable fashion forward?
I think that it's promising the way that I think since society and consumers are becoming more aware of the things that they are consuming, I think it's causing manufacturers and producers to take more accountability. And I think that eventually greenwashing won't really be enough and we'll start to kind of ask for receipts, which hopefully will lead to a more like um, honest way of production. But I think that there are ways in which technology could advance in terms of reusing textiles and repurposing textiles, because I think that's a pretty tedious process and it requires a lot of really hands-on manual labor. So I think that technology could help advance that and relieve some of that.
Yeah. I was talking to Amazon about their try before you buy that now is digital and how that actually has contributed with lowering returns, which then obviously has an impact on sustainability because is less packaging going back and forth and all of that. And also on the other side, there's an increased satisfaction on the customer side that buys and gets something that actually fits and looks the way that they think they do. When you're thinking about what I said earlier, that sustainability needs to be factored in from the beginning, right, from the start, and then there's the education process, if you like, on the consumer side. Help me understand your process, especially when you create something that is all made by secondhand material.
Yeah, so originally I wasn't planning on making everything secondhand. I was kind of like, if it comes natural, I was trying not to put too much pressure on myself because the summer before I had been stressing about it because I was like, like, I don't want to make a big footprint, but I also don't really have the funds to do it fully sustainably. And I was kind of at this weird back and forth, which ended up leading me to tap into my community. So I think the whole thing is just kind of based in community, like talking to other people and seeing where other people in your community might have waste. I'm sure that everybody has clothes that they want to get rid of. So that's already some textiles that you could use. Or thinking about, I mean, obviously there's purchasing materials on things like eBay, or I got a bunch of stuff from surplus stores. But I worked with local producers that I knew. So it's about tapping into your community to reduce their waste and help solve their problem, and then use their waste to benefit yourself. It's kind of like one
Upcycling.
man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
There's kind of little corners, I guess, you can cut when you are making things to be more strategic to reduce your waste even further. So, like strategic pattern cutting to reduce remnants, or sewing in a continuous line instead of cutting the thread every time. And it was things like that that I taught to the people that helped me produce my collection. So it was kind of a trickle down. And by tapping into my community and by sourcing things through my community, I was able to produce an entire collection. And I think there was like 18 or 19 garments, fully secondhand, but also for under $650.
And that's my next question to you. First of all, it's amazing that so much of what you're saying is actually applicable to tech as well, because it is about production. It is about what you're using. Lenovo, for instance, is starting to use bamboo as material for their laptops because it is, is a natural, is actually quite tough, but it will disintegrate naturally over time if it ends up in a landfill when you're recycling or upgrading your PCs. But also is about techniques, exactly what you're talking about on the tech side too. But let's get to the price, because I think that certainly in tech, I always, as you know, I care a lot about sustainability. And so my point is always people will pay. But I don't feel that is always, well, it's not like I don't feel, it is not true, fact-based, that being sustainable is more expensive. It does require more thought and process that starts with that, as we said before. But how do you feel about that? That the price for sustainable fashion has to be, or people think is more expensive?
I agree with you completely. I think that everyone thinks that it has to be so expensive. Both people on the production end and the consumption end like strongly believe that time is money. So they think that it has to be more expensive if I want it faster. So I think that everybody just kind of needs to slow down. It just takes like a little bit of thought, just a little bit of logistics. And I think that a lot of the large scale manufacturers just don't want to put that time in. They don't want to think about it. They don't have the time because they have all of these orders they need to fill or quotas they need to meet or whatever. But no one just has the time to pause for a second and rework the system, even though once they rework the system, it's like oiling a machine. Like,
Right.
it'll work better. And I think it's time that everybody does that. Like, we're entering 2026, and if you haven't done that by now, how is it going to last until 2030? Like, I don't think that it will.
I find it interesting what you're saying about kind of resetting expectations, because I just went through that for Juneteenth. I order for my husband black supply chain made T-shirt from Actively Black, and they send you an email and explain that it's going to take 3 weeks to get that T-shirt because they don't mass produce. So the cotton is sourced from a black owned farm, and then the supply chain is all black, and obviously the brand is black owned, and so you wait 3 weeks. But even for somebody, I think about things like that, but I'm so used to you order it on Amazon, it shows up after 12 hours. But it's like, ooh, where is the T-shirt? What? And then it's like, yeah, of course. And that helps with reducing waste, right? But the other part that I thought was interesting that they highlighted, that I don't know if you saw, there was a recent Polo big campaign around all black campaign of models and fashion. And the CEO of Actively Black was like, well, we get a lot of pushback for our garments being expensive, but then you don't have a problem going to a multi-million-dollar company that is charging what is charging. So I think that the value, I guess, it is where you put the value, right? Do you put the value on the name, or do you put the value on something that is sustainably sourced? And I think it's the same, and produced and all of that. And I think it's the same a little bit with tech.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the speed of consumption has also made it really, really difficult for brands to exist in the median. Like, there's fast fashion and then there's designer. So there's really high end and then there's really low end. And it's really, really, really difficult to exist in the in-between. Like, you're either buying a bag for $2 and you're getting it off of some fast fashion website, or you're buying it for like $2,000, but nobody wants to spend like $200.
Right.
Because they're like, $200, I could buy this same bag for $2, but it's not going to be made the same. Like, it's not going to be nearly as nice or be as well made. And I think that we've kind of taken our eye off the ball and lost our sense of the sense of importance placed on artistry and creativity and originality, because I don't know, everybody's kind of valuing how fast can I have it, not like how well is it made, or does it make me feel something, or I don't know, because art is supposed to make you feel something, like, so I think that fashion should reflect the same thing.
And that's another link, in my view, between certain items in tech and fashion. To exactly your point, there is an emotional connection with some technology because of what they bring to you, that really increases the engagement, builds brand loyalty. And I feel the same way about garments, because at the end of the day, the way they make you feel whether it is comfort or it is, empowerment or whatever it is, right? Depending on where you are, I think matters a lot. Um, I'm curious, as you mentioned, the importance of creativity and honoring that. How you feel about AI and how AI can come and either augment your ability to bring fashion to the market, or different disenfranchise your creativity because people think that you can just designing with AI.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like AI also in a way threatens software engineers, I believe.
Mm,
It's this idea of like, well, can't AI just do it? But AI can't do it to the level that we can. Do you know what I mean? AI doesn't work the same as the human brain. And I think that AI doesn't have the lived experiences that we kind of base these things off of. And though it is threatening for sure, because you
mm,
could be like, evaluate like trends in the 1970s and then put it in a modern punk context, and
yeah.
it would spit you out a
Yep.
series of generated designs. But I think ultimately it's not going to have the same soul as human made stuff
Yeah.
does. And I hope that it never advances to that point.
I agree. I think that the lived experiences, to your point, you can get a set of data and chug it into a model, but that lived experience from the designer perspective, that emotional connection to what you design is what brings then the pieces to life. We are almost at time, and I have two quick questions for you. One, what advice, and you started talking about it a little bit earlier, what advice would you get to someone who's trying to be a bit more sustainable in the way they approach fashion? And then on your personal journey, what's your moonshot? What do you want to do next?
My advice would be kind of like I was saying, to slow down and do a full factory reset. um, to figure out what makes you happy, what makes you feel like your best self, what you think is flattering, what you think is exciting, and start there. It's kind of about having a solid base, and building off of that. And I think that literally applies to like everything.
Life, yeah.
Yeah. But starting from that, you can do actually anything. Like, personally, I feel like I maybe buy clothes like once or twice a year, and when I do, I'm buying them secondhand because I feel as though I have the base in my closet to complement every crazy piece of clothing that I own, or vice versa. But I think that my moonshot would be to figure out a way to resolve, they call it the island of clothing. It's this like enormous landmass of discarded clothing in the Chilean desert, and it's
Oh,
so
wow.
big that you can see it on a satellite, which is insane. But I just feel like there has to be a solution for that. I don't understand why we are producing more textiles if there are textiles in excess right there.
Right.
So I think that my moonshot, like if I had the opportunity, would be to connect the two and kind of be that adapter that would help reduce that and reduce the growth rate, and also benefit producers and consumers and such.
That is an amazing moonshot because it's totally selfless, which I really appreciate. But also, I think says a lot about how your generation is thinking about fashion and the world in general. I really appreciate you being here with me today and finding time. Where can people find you and find your creations?
um, Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
You can find my work on my Instagram. It's Georgia, spelled like the state, and Wenig, Wenig. And I have like a lot of my work posted there. And if anyone wants to reach out with comments, questions, or just to maybe talk sustainability, advice on brands, just opinions, my DMs are always open.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.